Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my fourth class on this survey on Christianity, the worldview, and Christian worldview. This is fourth class. We've been covering about the concepts and the definition of definition of worldview in general, and then toward the end of this lesson, we are going to cover about what the Christian worldview says regarding the reality and the human existence. So last week we have talked about this life and living topic or subject regarding the worldview. So worldview sees and try to interpret what is our life, what is the meaning, and why we need to live and how to live and these things. Okay, we'll continue. We have an unknown future. This is something puzzles every person. And unless you're God, who has ability to know everything, including the future. This unknown future, it always bothers you. And you wish and hope that you would have known the things that are going to happen and coming in the future. But does not. You don't have that ability. And there are some people who has limited access to the future, and they too do earn money by doing that for some others. But the thing is, they don't know about their own future, even though they can talk about someone else's future. Not everything, but some important things. But those foretellings even doesn't quite right 100%. Anyway, so it is unknown future, your life, you're living, that is always puzzling you, and you hope and wish that you would know. And again, another question regarding the future, your life, is about the happiness. What is happiness? What provides you with happiness? The Bible says that happiness is shalom. Shalom is that eternal peace and happiness between two or more personal beings, entities, personal entities, God, angels, human beings. And when they find a harmony and a loving relationship, when they trust one another fully without any evil intention, that would be the goodness, that would be the happiness. That's the answer the Bible is trying to give. We'll talk about it in detail and toward the end of this whole lesson. But happiness is something people are seeking and asking and questioning and trying to find the answer. And the worldview, any worldview does give an answer to this very question of happiness. And they say this is how you can become happy. Many materialistic worldview says, when you're rich and when you have all the money, then you will be happy. But the people find millions dollars will not make you happy because you want more. That's a human desire. That's human essence, to ask for more things, more money, more riches. So there's no end to the satisfactory level of wealth that will give you happiness or guarantee happiness. The people desire endless. That's when it's not an answer. We know throughout the history and through even the present phenomenon, and then people who supposed to be rich. We know that that rich and the money is not giving them happiness. Okay, next important dominion or domain, the area of an worldview has to do with the death and the negatives. And death, that's one of the impossible. No one in human history did overcome that final destiny called death. It comes early for someone, it comes later. But rarely you live over 120. And most people live under 80 or 90. So the death comes for certain. It's an absolute truth. People die. Any person, whether they are good or not, whether they're strong or healthy or weak, there comes an end to their lives. So that is one of the ultimate questions. And the worldview tries to answer or argue or rationalize the death. And some just say there is going to be nothing after death. Nothing after death. Thus is a termination of your existence. There is nothing like a spirit or soul, but there is nothing like a beyond the life or afterlife. So that's how they rationalize death. So if that's the case, you try to live the way that you want, where your heart takes, where your desire goes. Just live the way that satisfies your ego, your greed, your selfish needs. That's some of the worldview that answers regarding the death and the life. But most of the worldview deals with the idea of salvation. And they believe, many worldview believe that there's going to be something after death. They think the death is not the end. That's not ultimate end. There is no like a termination of existence by death. So that is only a gate or door that you enter to the world that is different from the world that we experience as a living soul or living body. And the many worldviews, it does give answers the life beyond the death. But the problem is, not all the worldviews, they agree. Even though they agree there is something that is going to be, there is another existence after death, their version of life after death is different from the other. So it doesn't conclude to the one final answer, but there are many answers regarding the salvation. So the salvation has to do with the issue of your guilt, your sin, the faults and the wrongs that you have committed while you are living. And the worldview, all the good worldview tries to give answers to that issue of salvation. And negatives in life, these are the reality. These are the forms of your existence. That's the course of life, the ways of life. Actually, that's the contents of your life. And in the contents of your life, there is not only positives and happinesses, good times, but there are bad times. There are some issues and problems that you cannot resolve. And in spite of all the efforts and all the means that are available to you, and you exercise your best, then you still remain under the influence of these negative things. For example, poverty. Many, at least a third of global population live under absolute poverty, which means they may not have the 3 meals or even 2 meals a day or sufficient nutrition to stay healthy, or they do not have a proper housing to shelter from rain and cold and heat. And they may not have even have a proper clothes to wear to just protect them. They live with only one cloth for a whole year until it all dirties and that wears out. So they're 1/3 of whole population still remain under the absolute poverty. And out of another 2/3, most of them do not have sufficient means to have so-called quality of life. Quality of life. We're not talking about being rich or having everything they want. Just average quality of life. Feeling safe and feeling healthy and feeling the needs met. These are the basic things to sustain the quality of life. So the poverty, the question, why the people cannot overcome that poverty in spite of working 10, 16 hours a day. They cannot still earn the bread to feed even for himself or herself or the children. So that would be one of the major questions that human generation need to answer. And the worldview, it kind of gives an answer to that, or answers to that. Some of the worldview says because what you have done in the before life, because in the last life you have not lived a good life, and now you're born as a poor people to the poor family. So the suffering is a destination. As you're destined to be poor, and don't try to get out of that poverty because it's given by God. And that's some of the answers that some of the worldviews are providing them, which makes them more helpless. Helps them not to have any motivation to work and to give the best. And they just accept that as their destiny. And if a culture have that kind of worldview or reasoning for the poverty, it is almost impossible for them to overcome that poverty. On the other hand, the Bible or the Christian belief says you work diligently and then God is going to provide you with a sufficient provision. We call it provision to fulfill your life. And you will have something to eat, you will have a house to shelter, and you will have a dress to wear. But says, not any more than that you need. So that's kind of guideline regarding the wealth and poverty in the Bible. We can explore that later when we come to the topic of Christian worldview. And the problems and issues, is, the sickness, this evil plague that we are experiencing. These are a good example of the problems and issues. You have like 1,000 issues if you lived 1,000 days. So every day we face that the new day means a new issue or issues, new problem or problems. So that's human existence. So there is no way that you can be absolutely having no issues. If you're rich, riches have their own issues as rich people. What am I going to deal with this money? How can I keep this money under my hand and not lose my wealth? So that becomes their problems and issues. So if you resolve one problem, then that will incur a cause another issue or issues and problem. So that's human existence. And because of the nature of not being able to resolve the problems by just answering one problem, then we have more questions. And the worldview try to give answers to that. And especially natural disasters which are beyond human control. Tornadoes, hurricane, the rain and drought, floods. See, these are the questions and the problems that you have to deal with as a reality, and it comes and intervenes your existence. Because of that, as human nature, try to find answers to these issues and the problems. So you are faced with these issues and the problems, no matter what, no matter where you live, and no matter what your age is. Now we are going into the significance and functions or importance of worldview. So there are more actual detailed functions, what the worldview does or influence us in our lives. Okay? So I will think of and talk about the significance. So why do we need a worldview? So that was the question. It does unify our thoughts and life. When we say a community, again, it means it's common, and then unity. So people are finding unity through some common or sharing stuff, and that stuff is worldview. When you share the same or similar worldview and thoughts, then that can sustain the community. So community is built by sharing the same or similar worldview. So it provides with the similar and same thoughts and the way of life or lifestyle. The need to define the good life and find hope and meaning in life. So that's what it does. The worldview provides you with the so-called, what is a good life? This is a good life. So any culture, any community will give you a suggestion or their direction or guidance toward that good life, which is closely related to the meaning of life. We have discussed this just a few minutes ago. And the hope. Hope has to do with the unknown future. We are faced, by birth, by nature, we are faced with the unknown future. And if you do not have that hope, only despair, only a pessimistic future, then there's no reason to continue to survive. That's why some people commit suicide, because there's no more hope. There's no reason to continue to struggle. And then it's better for them, they decide it's better to end than struggle. See, this is that's important, because the biblical worldview or Christian worldview, it's not just a religion, it provides that hope, the meaning of life, and what the good life is. It gives a certain guidance. And once you accept that as your answer, as the truth, then we try to live by that guidance, that suggestion. And that gives a meaning to your life, the reason to survive. And there's the need to guide your thoughts. Some thoughts are evil, some thoughts are good. And how do you determine whether this is a good thought or a bad thought, or good behavior or bad behavior? The worldview does. Laws, rules, instructions, these are the forms of guidance. But there's an unwritten guidance of your thoughts and behavior. That's underlying thing, and that's basically the worldview. And the need to guide actions. See, again, the thought and actions. Thought, it results your behavior. Thought results your decision to act. And by that decision to act, then you go out and do the things, or you do the talks. So what the words of your mouth, then actions of your hands and the feet, it is determined by thoughts. But that thoughts are guided by the worldview. So when people behave a certain ways, then always there's a reason behind it, or reasonings behind it, rationals behind it, the decisions behind it. And how do you find out? By looking at their worldview. When you understand his or her worldview, you better understand his or her behavior. That's why the worldview is important. Many people just see the behavior and then make the judgment, whether, they say good or bad. But sometimes, many times it helps to go beyond that behavior and search the reason or reasonings of that person for acting in a certain way. So that's where the worldview comes in. And some people have very devious worldview that you cannot understand. And some have that mental issues. And when people have mental issues, they do have issues with their worldview. Okay, some other significant and functions. It does provide your identity. The worldview tells who you are. For example, in ancient times, the worldview tells that you are a slave. You're born as a slave, and because it is your destiny. It is destined. That God, so-called God or gods, decide you to become a slave. And then you have no other ways but to accept it. And 99% of them just accept it, and then there's no effort or reasoning or questioning about their own identity. That's how some society, some communities do function, because those people accept their role as a slave and they live until death. And so society can function. And in modern days, some theory or some teachings or some worldview says you are just a more complexly evolved animal. And for animal, and there's no things as so-called ethics. And only ethic is the survival of the fittest, or survival of the strongest. And if that is the case, it is okay to oppress who are weak, or to take advantage of those who are weaker animals. So they can justify their actions or their behaviors, right? So some believe we are all born as animals who are more intelligent than the apes or chimpanzees, and but shares the same ethics just like an animal. So these are like examples of identity thing. And it does rationalize the meanings of your existence, meanings of our existence. So if you cannot rationalize your existence or your behavior, and you'll face pretty much conflict within. And it's not that if there's that conflict, unknown conflict within, then you might ask yourself, am I having the answers to the meanings of my existence? And if you do not, if you cannot rationalize the meanings of your existence, then you will find yourself in conflict. Also, it helps, the worldview helps to project your own destiny. Without a solid and affirmed meaning that you accepted. So, unless you have a solid and affirmed worldview about answering your destiny and then your reason for existence, and it is difficult for us to sustain that life. And this was the case for the young people today. They are not given, or they are not even searching for this trajectory of reason. No goals, no purpose. Therefore, you just live day by day, and you just follow the pleasure of your hearts. And it's very instinctive and it's irrational. There's no pattern, except that that person is following the desire of your own ego, your lust, and your greed. And that's why there are so many issues for the world today. It's not just for the today, but it was the same in the ancient world as well. 2,000 years ago, it was the same when Jesus was walking around Sea of Galilee, the same issues. It's just a matter of the kind and the proportion, but it was there. It was there in 5,000 years ago. It was there in ancient Egypt. There was the same issues. So without given the purpose and the meaning, the trajectory of your life is difficult. You do not know where to aim. You just shoot the arrows and you are going to miss. And you don't even have the target to shoot to. And when that is the case, it's a very sad scenario, but that scenario is common today for the many young people, and they are so misguided. They are not guided at all. And unfortunately, many are not even seeking for the guidance. So that's those identity and the meaning and the reason for living. It provides the worldview, motivates, and it becomes a driving force for you to do your efforts. It becomes the reason for living. It becomes the reason for your study and the efforts. And in our culture, a Confucian culture, we say you have to work hard, but hardly give the reason to work hard. And in the ancient world, you work harder for the king, and you work harder for your parents. But when you tell you the modern people those as the reason, it doesn't make sense. So, in the modern world, there has to be something that replaces all the reasoning. And the Bible and the Christianity provides you with good, proper, and true reasoning for survival and for living and for serving and for working. So the worldview, good worldview, gives a good motivation. It does give you a good reasons, and it gives you the good force to strive and to struggle and to try your best efforts to resolve issues and problems. If you don't have this, and then there comes time that you say, I cannot do this anymore because I don't have reason to struggle anymore. And that's a sad thing, but it happens. It happens. Also, it deals, the worldview deals with the issue of those unknowns that we talked about, right? These unknowns and the hope. When you have hope, these unknowns becomes something that you are anticipating, meaning that you are waiting for, to see how God is going to deal with these unknowns, and that how God is going to reveal about these unknowns. And the Bible, unfortunately, the Bible gives the key answers to these unknowns, the futures, how my life is going to end, and then what happens after that death, and then there's much better things in afterlife than what I have experienced in this life. If this life is good for you, for Christians, life is good. Even though you may be poor, you may be suffering from oppressions, you may suffer from the sickness and the abnormality, and even if you may have some physical and mental challenges, still there is that promise, the hope of a much better life in the future. And in spite of all these elements, negative elements, this life is still good for Christians, because not because of all these things around you. The reality is just the backdrop or backgrounds. It's not the major thing. The reality that you see, whether it's poverty or sickness, is something that is going to go by and pass by. It's temporary. And the thing is that God is with me. God walks with me. God comforts me. God inspires me. When it happens, it's not just the same. When it happens and when you experience that yourself in your life, then you know that there's a better thing in the future. And that gives you hope. So the unknown is no longer the factor for puzzling or factor for making you unstable or insecure, but unknown becomes anticipation. It's like trying to open a Christmas present. It's wrapped and you don't know what's in there, but you know there is a good stuff in there. It's the same kind of anticipation, but it is much better than your Christmas present or birthday present or birthday gifts. And hope is much better than those small gifts that you are going to receive. And you anticipate on what is going to come. So unknown is no longer a thing of fear, or a thing of worries, or a thing of insecurity. And the worldview it provides, and it helps you to identify the objects and reality. So you see the reality as it is. It's not twisted, it's not exaggerated, or it's not selected. Many worldview gives you the idea or the guideline. You kind of select the reality, and you choose certain reality, and you take that and just throw away other reality. For example, some modern ideas says life is good, and you enjoy. But that's only partially true. It's not true reality. There are some bad things, bad stuff in your life. And some worldview says just believe in yourself and you'll be okay and you will be perfect. And that's a lie. It's not reality. The reality is you are not perfect. You are not always good. You are not always making better decisions or good decisions. You make mistakes. You are vulnerable. You are not infallible. You can infallible. You are not. You cannot fail. But we do fail. So there are some worldviews that does not show a reality as it is. And it differentiates and distinguishes good to evil. This is what the most worldview is trying to do. Good and evil. But it is different. Many worldviews are different from the biblical good and biblical evil. So even though many worldviews try to distinguish good and evil, they do it in their own terms. And the Bible gives a different picture about good and evil. Provides personality and characters. The worldview, whether you like it or not, or whether you are aware of it or not, it does build your characters and your personality. So, personality, if you are grown in a certain culture, you will develop certain characters. And that means if you have grown in another culture, then you would have developed the different character. Because character is something that you develop after you're born. Of course, there are something that you are born with, and I call that as trait. Trait is inside, it's born with. But the same trait, even though you have the same trait, you will develop different characters with a different environment and different culture. Thus, the culture is associated closely with this worldview. So the worldview influences your character. That's why once you become a Christian, a true believer, your character is reshaping. Your character is changing. If you do not experience the change of your personality and character after you becoming a Christian, something's wrong. Because one major thing that Holy Spirit does for you is to develop the character and the personality that is close to that of Jesus Christ. For example, there are 9 fruits of the Holy Spirit. See, all these things, goodness and holiness and the kindness. These are the characters. 9 fundamental characters, and you formulate that through the Holy Spirit, work of the Holy Spirit. So that's what the worldview is going to do. So not only you see the reality in such a way, but also that helps you to develop within from yourself. So we discussed the definition. The worldview deals with yourself, the reality, and existence. See, these are 3 major contents or the domains of the worldview, and worldview does influence who you are, your character, your personality. Not only that, it impacts others. Because you have a certain worldview, it's going to impact others. It is strange. I mean, you might ask how, because as your worldview, I can agree and understand that it's gonna change your character, your worldview, your sense of reality and your life existence. Okay. But how is it going to affect others? Because when you talk, when you behave, when you relate to others, you do it out of your own worldview. And they, whether these other people, whether they are aware of it or not, they are being influenced by your action, your words, your way of thinking. Go to the root, your worldview. So your fundamental worldview and your values is going to influence others. That's why it is important for you to become a mature Christian. Your maturity is going to influence others directly. So, whether you intend or not, whether you plan it or not, it is going to happen. So your worldview is going to impact others for sure. So for this reason, the worldview, the function, what the worldview does is very important for the community, whether it's your family or whether you're, we're talking about the circle of friends. Your worldview is important. On the other hand, even if you're a Christian, if you're surrounded by others who has a strong worldview of their own, which is not biblical, you may be influenced by their worldview. So this goes both ways. So it is important to watch someone else's worldview. If you have an argument about certain issues, it's not just your character or your preference. It is more of a value, and behind it, the worldview. So this awareness about worldview for a Christian is very key to a successful conversation, successful evangelism. We don't want just they to change their religion. So the conversion we talk about is not the change of the religious loyalty, but we are talking about the change of the worldview. Worldview is not imposed. Worldview is learned. And worldview is affirmed, meaning they are going to, they are the one who is going to decide whether to accept a certain worldview or not. So you don't talk about the worldview. You don't say, this is my worldview, and are you going to accept my worldview? You don't do that. And that's not how it works. But many evangelism, so-called evangelism, is trying to do that. They try to just change the religion. No, it's not that. It's trying to just influence them in such a way they'll just figure out, and they'll question, and they'll seek and research my worldview, because they feel there's something that's different, and there's something that of value. There is something more rational, and there is something that is more truthful about the way I perceive the world, way I respond to the reality, and the way that I understand the life. So these are things, even though I don't exactly say this is the way that I understand my life, this is the value that I am making the decision, but people know, because people are spiritual beings. They know when my spirit acts, when my spirit works. They'll understand, they'll catch it. That's how the evangelism should be. I mean, there comes a time, a moment, that I need to explain certain doctrines to help them to become a Christian. But that happens as these things are prepared or forehand. It happens prior. Okay? And eventually, the worldview, it does explain about the eternity. It does give you the idea about the eternity. Not just the Christian worldview, but all the worldview. It says this is the eternity. That's how your life is going to end and then continue. And this is how the world will end it and then continue. So most good religion and worldview provide these answers. Okay, so these are the significance and the functions of worldview as we see it. And let's go back and have a short review about the concept and definition of worldview. Okay, and we'll just conclude lesson 1. So lesson 1 has been 4 classes, and it covers basically what the worldview is and what the worldview does. So we want to understand more further about the worldview. So let's go back and try to recap today's lesson and last week's lesson briefly. So major subject that worldview covers. So it talks about what is real, what is the reality, and the worldview does give the purpose, the reasoning, and the meaning of your life. That's what the worldview does, and basically it covers who you are. Again, it's about yourself, and it's about reality, and it's about the existence. These are 3 major topics. So again, worldview try to give an answer to, what is a human being? Is it just a better animal, or is it a different level of existence? And we ask, why am I here? Okay, and worldview gives goals and purpose of life, and the worldview also suggests certain values and priorities as you decide your actions and your speech, your words. And so these are main topics and subjects. Deity, the God, the spiritual beings that are invisible beings. It also discusses about the nature and universe, how you should read and see and take your attitude toward the nature and universe. And it also gives your attitude about person, understanding about people, and it does talk about what the life is and what should your lifestyle would be. Excuse me. And also the worldview talks about the death and all the negative things in life. And we talked about deity, nature and universe, and the person himself and others, and life and living, and death and negatives. And then significance and function. Today's lesson, the class, we talked about this, so we'll go over on these things. Okay, again, so the worldview, it kind of controls or guides your thoughts, and then because by guiding the thoughts, it gives a way to your life. And it talks about what the good life is. And it talks about the hope, because there are unknowns in your life. And it talks about the meaning in life again. So the main thing, if worldview does not give the meaning to life, then it is not a worldview. It's a partial ideology, or it might be a certain philosophy. Even philosophy deals with the meaning of life. So it's just it's not a full-blown worldview when it fails to give the meaning of life. And it guides your thoughts and your actions, your behaviors. So that's what it is. And these are again the list of these functions. It provides identity and the meaning and then your destiny. Again, it becomes your motivation and your driving force, and it explains and reasons against the unknown. So by doing that, it gives a sense of security. And it does identify the objects, the reality. And it differentiates and distinguishes, and it does eventually explain the eternity. So that's the functions, and that's what the worldview does. And thank you, and we will meet you next week, and have a nice day and nice week until we meet. Bye. Thank you.